You know how it is you want to get the good stuff, the key insights, without slogging through tons of text. That's what the deep dive is all about. And today we're doing just that with excerpts from chapter 49, The Good Shepherd.
Right, from the Built for God.
Yep.
Or BFG movement.
Yeah, that's the one. It's presented as a kind of Christian take on the Tao Te Ching, aiming to, quote, restore the truth.
Through a new expression of God's love, as they put it.
And we're also going to look closely at their Trinitarian method mindset, aim, and practice, MAP.
MAP, right. They frame it as a pathway to renewal based on this chapter.
And people should stick around. We'll also touch on their response section.
Oh yeah, that part's fascinating. It draws some, well, surprising parallels with other world religions.
Totally.
So I guess our goal today is really to get to the heart of what this chapter is saying about Jesus as the Good Shepherd.
And more importantly, what does that actually mean for us?
Exactly. You know, how can these ideas shape your perspective, maybe your actions?
Or even how you see connections with people from different backgrounds or beliefs.
That too.
Okay, so let's dive straight into it. This idea of the Good Shepherd. Chapter 49 paints this picture of Christ with some very specific qualities.
It does,
Well, it talks about him having this really open mind, being righteous or fair towards everyone, no exceptions, and being totally reliable, faithful, living in peace, really getting people, merging minds with them, leading by example, and finally loving everyone like they're his own children. It's quite an image.
It is, yeah. And what's interesting right from the start is how the chapter grounds these characteristics in the Bible.
It's not just abstract stuff.
No, they provide a whole list of scriptural references: Romans, Philippians, Matthew, Timothy, Acts, John, Peter.
So they're making it clear this new expression isn't pulling things out of thin air. It's like they're saying, look, this isn't brand new, but maybe a way to see the familiar freshly, to bring those truths back.
To restore the truth, as they say. The chapter itself states that purpose.
Presenting the gospel in a renewed way to help people reconnect.
Yeah. So we're not looking at some distant figure, but a good shepherd who's deeply involved.
Makes sense.
And that leads us nicely into this idea of renewal using their MAP framework: mindset, aim, practice.
The Trinitarian method.
Right. The text suggests this process is fueled by God's love, trust in the Son, and, well, faith in the Holy Spirit's guidance.
So the love gives the why, the example gives the how, and the Spirit gives the push.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah. So let's break it down. Let's start with the mindset. They link to each of those Good Shepherd attributes.
Okay, sounds good. So for the Good Shepherd's open mind, what's the mindset there?
It's about cultivating that same openness and empathy in ourselves. Really listening, trying to understand different viewpoints.
Which makes sense. They mentioned Philippians 2.5, having Christ's mindset, and Romans 15.7, accepting each other.
Exactly. It's like saying, before you jump to conclusions, try to see where the other person is coming from.
That shift from judging to understanding seems key.
It is. Creating connection, approaching with compassion first. A practical thing might be just focusing on active listening day to day.
Really hearing someone out before forming your response.
Yeah. Before you jump in, try to grasp their perspective, maybe even their feelings.
Okay. Then there's being righteous to all. The mindset isn't about being, self-righteous.
No, definitely not.
It's about aiming for that impartial fairness, God's standard, as they put it.
And they bring up some challenging verses like loving your enemies from Matthew, or doing good to those who hate you from Luke.
It's a pretty high bar, isn't it? This idea of righteousness that doesn't care who you are or what you did.
It really pushes against our sort of natural tendency to treat people based on our own biases, or whether we think they deserve kindness.
The text emphasizes that Jesus' righteousness was universal.
Yeah, not just for a select group. And the application is choosing fairness, maybe forgiveness, even when it's tough or doesn't benefit you directly.
Okay, next is being faithful to all. What's the mindset?
Here, it's about being constant, reliable in your commitments. And this is key, regardless of whether others are faithful back.
Okay. They reference 2 Timothy that God remains faithful even if we aren't.
In Hebrews, God promising never to leave us. It's about that deep, unwavering reliability.
So the insight is that this faithfulness isn't conditional.
Exactly. It's mirroring that divine steadfastness. Being true to your word, showing up not because what you get back, but because that's who you aim to be. Acting with integrity.
Makes sense. Then living in peace. The mindset.
Actively choosing peace. Letting go of the need to always be right or win arguments. Prioritizing harmony.
They mentioned Matthew 5.9, blessed are the peacemakers.
And Romans 12, urging us to live at peace with everyone. as much as possible.
So it's about consciously choosing calm over conflict.
Yeah, and it suggests outward peace starts with an inner choice, deciding to step back, seek resolution, find common ground, instead of just focusing on differences.
Okay, attribute 5, merging minds with people. What's the mindset for that?
This one's about developing really deep empathy, trying to grasp not just what people say, but their underlying motivations, their struggles.
Like Romans 12, sharing joys and sorrows.
Yes, and Hebrews 4.15, that Jesus understands our weaknesses. It's connecting on a really fundamental human level.
Going beyond just like polite conversation.
Absolutely. Striving to see the world through their eyes, understand their inner landscape. Again, active listening is crucial here. Not just waiting to talk, but focusing on what's being said and felt.
Got it. Then, being followed by example, the mindset.
Recognizing that actions speak louder than words. Simple as that, really.
Living in a way that matches your values because people follow what you do more than what you say.
Precisely. They reference Matthew 4, follow me, and John 13:3-5, where love is the identifier. It's about authentic leadership through living.
Being aware that your life demonstrates your beliefs.
Yeah. Your behavior has an impact, so the call is to make sure your actions reflect your principles. Leading by authenticity, not just words.
And the last one, loving all as children, the mindset here.
Cultivating unconditional love for everyone, seeing inherent value in people regardless of their actions or beliefs.
Like John 13.34, the command to love one another.
And 1 John 4.19, we love because God first loved us. It's about a really inclusive, generous kind of love.
That really captures that core Good Shepherd image, doesn't it?
It does. Deep, unwavering care for everyone. It challenges us to look past differences and embrace shared humanity, extending love even when it's hard or someone seems, undeserving.
Okay, so that covers the mindset part of MAP. How do these ways of thinking translate into the next step, the aim, our intentions or goals?
Right. So for the open mind, the aim is to actively seek that openness and empathy in all interactions.
Making it a deliberate goal, not just a nice idea. They reference Philippians 2.4 again, looking out for others' interests.
Exactly. It's setting a clear intention, making a conscious effort to understand before reacting, making space for other views, showing empathy.
Okay. And for being righteous to all, the aim.
To actively strive for impartial justice and righteousness in every situation.
Again, referencing Matthew 5.45, God sending rain on everyone, and Luke 6.35, loving enemies. It's about pursuing fairness.
Yeah, going beyond just feeling we should be fair and actively looking for ways to practice justice, maybe speaking up, challenging unfairness, ensuring fairness in personal dealings, even when it's not easy.
Got it. For being faithful to all, what's the aim?
To intentionally practice unwavering faithfulness, holding on to hope because God is faithful, referencing 2 Timothy and Hebrews again.
So a determined commitment to being reliable.
Yeah, the aim is to be that dependable person, that constant no matter the circumstances or what others do. Consciously choosing steadfastness.
And for living in peace.
The aim is to actively pursue peace and reconciliation. Again, Matthew 5.9 and Romans 12.18.
Being an active agent for harmony, not just passively avoiding conflict.
Right. Actively working towards understanding and resolution, being the one who initiates peaceful talk, seeks common ground, is willing to forgive and reconcile.
Okay. For merging minds,
to intentionally develop that deep empathy and understanding for others' experiences. Romans 12.15, Hebrews 4.15 again.
A conscious effort to connect deeply.
Yeah, pushing beyond surface interactions, really trying to grasp the emotional, maybe even spiritual landscape of others, connecting with their joys and sorrows, making that effort.
Makes sense. Aim for being followed by example.
To consciously lead by living out godly principles. Being a light, as Matthew 5 says, or living good lives so others might see, like in 1 Peter.
Intentional modeling of behavior.
Exactly. Constantly being aware that your life communicates something, striving to live in a way that reflects your values, hoping your example influences others positively, taking responsibility for your impact.
And finally, the aim for loving all as children.
To deliberately embrace unconditional love for everyone, mirroring Christ's love. John 13.34-35.
Setting the intention to love without conditions.
Yes, it challenges us to extend that radical, all-encompassing love, even to those who are difficult. Consciously choosing to mirror that divine love.
Okay, we've covered mindset and aim. Now for the third part. Practice. The actual doing it part.
Right. the actions we can take.
So for cultivating an open mind, the practice is, well, actively cultivating empathy and openness. Same references, Philippians 2.4, Romans 15.7.
Exactly. It's putting intention into action, actively listening, trying to consider their experiences before reacting, approaching conversations with humility.
Like maybe making a habit of asking clarifying questions.
That's a great practical step, yeah, to make sure you really understand their perspective.
Okay. For demonstrating impartiality and justice, the practice.
Actively showing it, fairness in tangible ways, again.
So taking action.
Yeah. Standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Advocating for the marginalized, ensuring fairness in your dealings, challenging injustice.
For being consistently faithful, the practice is being reliable.
Pretty much. Consistent, dependable action. Honoring promises, being there for people, offering support and grace, even when it's tough.
Building trust through consistency. They reference 2 Timothy and Hebrews again here too.
Right. It's about the follow-through.
And for pursuing peace and reconciliation, the practice.
Actively working towards it, taking concrete steps towards harmony.
So actually resolving conflicts.
Yeah. Being willing to forgive, seek forgiveness, choose understanding over getting defensive, being proactive in creating more peaceful environment.
Okay. For seeking to understand others' perspectives, the practice is making that conscious effort to connect, right? Practicing empathy.
Yes. Being fully present when interacting. Asking those open-ended questions to understand thoughts and feelings.
Really listening without just planning your reply.
Living authentically, in line with your values.
Constantly checking if your actions match your beliefs.
Kind of, yeah. Striving for integrity, letting kindness, humility, compassion show through in how you interact with people.
And finally, loving others unconditionally, the practice.
Actively showing that love, putting it into action without expecting something back. John 13.34-35.
Extending kindness, forgiveness, compassion to everyone.
Even those who seem challenging to love. Consciously choosing to mirror that boundless love in your daily interactions.
Okay, wow. So that's the mindset, aim, and practice breakdown for renewal. Now, the final section mentioned is respond.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting, connecting these principles outwards.
How living these out helps us connect with others, maybe even across different faiths.
Exactly. They start drawing parallels between those first 5 attributes: open mind, righteous, faithful, peaceful, merging minds, and teachings in other major world religions.
Okay, this could be really insightful. What do they say about the open mind?
They point to echoes of empathy and openness, not just in Christianity like Matthew 9 or Mark 2, showing Jesus' compassion, but also in Buddhism.
Like the Dhammapada.
Right, Dhammapada 223 on compassion. And in Islam, Quran 49, verses 11-12 on understanding. And Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, on compassion.
So the core idea is that being open and empathetic isn't exclusive to one tradition.
Precisely. They emphasize it as a kind of uniting principle, referencing Philippians 2.4 and Romans 15.7 again as the Christian anchor, but showing its broader resonance.
That's powerful. Okay, what about being righteous to all? Where do they see parallels?
Again, across the board. Christian impartiality in Matthew 5.45 and Luke 6.27-28, Buddhist righteousness in Dhammapada 223-224, Islamic mercy and justice in the Quran, like 3.135 or 16.90, and Hindu impartial justice in the Bhagavad Gita, 9.22.
Suggests a pretty universal understanding of fairness, doesn't it?
It really seems to underscore that basic human intuition about right and wrong, and that compassion and justice should extend to everyone. A deep ethical core. They link it back to Matthew 5.45 and Romans 2.11 about God's impartiality.
Okay. Then, being faithful to all, where are the connections drawn?
They connect God's faithfulness in Christianity, 2 Timothy 2.13, Hebrews 10.23, with, well, the availability of Buddhist teachings to all in Buddhism.
Interesting.
And Allah's constant faithfulness in Islam, Quran 39.53, 2.286, and the divine's presence and faithfulness in Hinduism, Bhagavad Gita 9.22, 10.11.
So the unifying idea is this sense of unwavering divine faithfulness.
Yeah, offered impartially. That shared emphasis on the consistent, reliable nature of a higher power, offering hope and stability. Seems like a fundamental human need reflected in diverse paths. Again, 2 Timothy 2.13 and Hebrews 10.23 are the Christian touchstones here.
Makes sense. What about living in peace?
They highlight Jesus as Prince of Peace, Matthew 5.9. Then inner peace and nonviolence in Buddhism, Dhammapada 223. Peace as central in Islam, Quran 49. And peace through self-understanding in Hinduism, Bhagavad Gita 16.3.
Peace really is a central theme everywhere.
It really brings home that universal desire for harmony, inner and outer, a fundamental value transcending doctrines. Matthew 5.9 and Romans 12.18 ground it in the Christian context they're using.
Okay, and the last one they connect is merging minds.
Right. They see parallels with Jesus seeking understanding. Matthew 9.36. Buddhist mindfulness and awareness, Dhammapada 2.23. Islamic empathy, Quran 49.11-12. And Hindu interconnectedness, Bhagavad Gita 5.18.
So the core principle is understanding and connection through empathy.
And self-awareness, yeah. That profound understanding of shared humanity and the vital role of empathy. Recognizing we're all connected. Romans 12.15 and Hebrews 4.15 are the references again.
And they even drop that St. Thomas Aquinas quote in there, don't they? Truth cannot contradict truth.
Yeah, which really seems to reinforce this idea of an underlying harmony, even if things look different on the surface.
Suggesting maybe these paths are pointing towards similar fundamental truths about how to live and relate.
That seems to be the implication, yeah.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen how this chapter presents the Good Shepherd focusing on open-mindedness, universal fairness, faithfulness, peace, empathy, leading by example, and that unconditional love.
Yeah, and what's really useful, I think, is how they're not just abstract ideas. They're broken down into those practical steps for personal growth, mindset, aim, practice, the MAP framework.
Right. Hopefully for everyone listening, this gives a quick but, thorough grasp of these core concepts and how they might apply.
And it is fascinating seeing those potential connections, those shared threads between Christian teachings and principles in other major faiths. It definitely broadens the perspective on these fundamental human values.
So maybe here's something to leave people thinking about. What if you actively focused on just one of these attributes this week?
Like maybe consciously practicing empathy in your next tricky conversation.
Yeah, or making a deliberate effort to be more faithful in just one small commitment you've made. How could that simple act ripple outwards?
Could it reveal more common ground with others than you maybe currently see?
It's worth considering. We'd encourage you to reflect on which of these attributes, or maybe which practice, resonated most with you, and perhaps why.
Yeah. Thanks for diving deep with us today.